Hi, thank you for joining me today. In this video, we're going to be discussing a part of speech known as an adjective. All right, before we jump directly into adjectives, there are a few fundamental or foundational things you do need to know. They fall under parts of speech that you must be able to define and identify in a sentence. All right, the first one you're going to need to know about an adjective, before we can jump into adjectives, is the part of speech known as a noun. Okay. A noun, again, is a part of speech that is actually broken up into three different categories. So it's got to fall under either a person or a place, a person, place, or, I'm going to emphasize the word or, thing. Notice how I am using the conjunction or rather than and to say that it can be distinctly a person, distinctly a place, or distinctly a thing, not all three at once. Okie dokie. Now that we can identify a noun, or now that we've defined a noun, we should be able to identify it in a sentence because the function, let me switch my color, the function of an adjective, which I am neatly writing on screen, is to modify or describe, in other words, tell you more about a noun. So it will modify or describe, and in parentheses, I'm going to say, tell you more about a noun. Okie dokie. Now I'm going to go ahead and segment my page with this beautiful line. All right, let's go ahead and look at a few different examples. And in these examples, I'm going to go ahead and provide a sentence from which we're going to go ahead and break it up into its parts. We'll start with our nouns, we'll move into verbs, and then we'll take a look or hunt for adjectives and point directly to the nouns that they're being used to describe. All right, so for the first sentence, let's go ahead and start off with something simple like my cat's fur is black, period. Okay, let's break the sentence apart just a bit, just to make it easier to be able to identify an adjective. Let's look first for the noun. Take a moment to read it over. My cat's fur is black. And in a moment, we're going to go ahead and label the nouns. Give you a second. All right, I think you've had enough time. So hopefully you were able to see, or say rather, or notice that we have a cat, right, as a thing. It's an animal. So this would be a noun. And of course we have fur, which is also a noun. However, some of you are likely to say, well, black is a thing. It's a color. Yes and no. The way in which I'm using it, or using the word black in the sentence through the context of it, shows that I'm actually not using the word black as a noun. Instead, I'm using it to operate differently. So I'm not going to label it as a noun. Instead, what we're going to do is say, well, this, and all colors, really, all colors and numbers, to be honest, are adjectives. They're descriptors. They're telling you about a noun. So I will label it as such. The question now is, if I were to draw an arrow to visualize, or rather to show from the adjective black and point it directly to the noun it's being used to describe, or it's describing rather, which noun would you pick? I'll give you a second. Hopefully, you selected fur. Some of you may have opted to say my cat's fur, which is also correct. Black is being used to describe the fur of the cat, which is what the fur belongs to, or rather, which is who owns the fur in this case. However, just for argument's sake, we're going to go ahead and say it's going to point towards the noun fur because the color black is being used to describe the noun fur. All right. Let's take a look at a second sentence. We can say, Santa's belly was swollen. So very large, right? Santa, it's Christmas time. He tends to be a bigger man. He's traveling a lot. He's sitting a lot. He's gaining weight. All right, got a big belly. So let's, again, take a look at the nouns in the sentence. Give you a second. All right, hopefully you were able to see that, well, Santa is a proper noun, but still a noun, it's a person. So it's a noun. Belly, another term for stomach. That would also be a noun. And then there are two other words which aren't people, places, or things. In fact, what I want to do is let's go ahead and take a look, because I'm left with two words, one of which could potentially be an adjective, or they both could be. But let's break it down even further, and let's find our verbs. What's the action of the sentence in number 2? That's right. Hopefully you guys were able to see the word, or in this case, the verb is was. This is our verb, also known as a to-be verb, to which there are 8, like is, was, am, etc. Excuse me. Okay, so now we know we're talking about Santa, his belly. We know the verb, the action is he was. Well, Santa's belly was what? Well, in this case, process of elimination, we can even tell that this is our adjective. Now I have to ask, which noun would I physically draw an arrow from that adjective to the noun again to show which noun is describing? Which would you choose? From here, hopefully you guys said belly. Again, just as before where we had the cat's fur and we have Santa's belly, it's a belly that belongs to Santa. For argument's sake, we're going to go ahead and just stick with belly. It's speaking explicitly about his stomach, or his belly in this case. All right, let's look at a third. All right, let's go ahead and look at number 4. All right, for number 4, we have my stinky shoes were brown in color. All right, just as we've done in the earlier exercises, go ahead and pause if you need to, but identify the nouns in the sentence. All right, looking at those nouns, we have shoes. Those are things, right? You wear them. Brown. Well, brown's a color, right? Color is a color. It's a thing. But again, like I mentioned, when we're talking about adjectives, anytime you have a noun being described as in terms of quantity, like how many of that noun there is, or what color it is, or what size, etc., that's going to be what's considered an adjective, because that word is being used as a descriptor for the noun. So with that being said, I'm going to change my original label of noun from brown, because it is a color, it's a thing, but not in the way we're using it. So I'm going to go ahead and erase noun. I'm going to go ahead and get rid of that ugly circle. And I'm going to go ahead and say, well, what if brown is being used as an adjective? Well, okay. This adjective is being used to describe which of the nouns in the sentence. I'll give you guys a second. That's right. The shoes. We're talking about brown shoes. However, some of you may also have noticed that, there's another word which is talking about that same noun. We're still talking about the shoes, but there's a second descriptor. You'll notice at the beginning, my stinky shoes. Well, what kind of shoes are they? Well, they are stinky. This is describing the smell of the shoes. So this as well is an adjective. And just for fun, what's the verb in the sentence? Hopefully you guys noticed that the verb here is were. This is also a to-be verb, right? Like I, am, was, were. There's 8 of them. I wish I could list them all off from the top of my head. All right, so just to reiterate, that was about 4 sentences that we tackled. The third one was just a nightmare. But the other sentence hopefully helped you to see what an adjective is and how it functions in these very, very simple sentences. You just have to remember that an adjective is going to point towards or describe or talk more about a noun in a sentence. So if it does help you, and I would encourage you to do so, when you're looking at a sentence and you're tasked with finding the adjective or adjectives, break it down into its parts of speech. Take a look, find the nouns, find the verbs, right? Whatever you need to do to kind of eliminate some of those other choices. And when you do suspect that you found an adjective in the sentence, simply draw an arrow from what you think is the adjective to the noun or the word you suspect it's describing and reread the sentence with that arrow in mind, that visual. Just to have you ask the question, well, is this truly what the word I think is the adjective is describing among all the nouns perhaps that are also included in that sentence? So anyway, thank you guys for joining me. I'm going to go ahead and stop my share. In another video, we're going to go ahead and continue a few exercises with adjectives. In addition to that, we're also going to step into the world of adverbs. All right, thanks again. Bye.